All right. Now we're on YouTube, and then let's just get the little recording going.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a few weeks, but we're back on with another episode of Talk Openly. My name is Jack, and I'm here with my excellent friend Daniel. And we are Sangha members at Lions Roar Dharma Center. And Daniel, I am so happy to see you.
Ah, I'm excited, like it's so a little bit of space, right? A couple of weeks off, and now I'm like craving him. Like I gotta get
Yeah,
in there. I need to talk to Jack.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking about it today, and I was like, oh my gosh, it feels like it's been lifetimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to talking to you once a week, and it's been that way for what, like a year and a half, almost 2 years. And so when we've got even just a week off, sometimes it's like that felt like a long time.
Yeah, well, there were
Um,
many opportunities in those 2 weeks to die and be reborn.
that's true.
So
Yes,
many lifetimes of a sort.
that's true. Yeah, at any moment, right? Something could happen.
For sure. There's always something, man. Always.
Always something. Yeah. Well, tell me how you're doing. It's great to see you.
Oh, yeah, same. It's really kind of fascinating to me. I've been thinking about energy fairly recently because, I think, I'm not unique in this in any way. People experience these ebbs and flows in their energy states. And, sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long. I
Mm,
feel like I kind of went through like this sort of depressive, sort of like down state for, I don't know, last couple of months or something.
yeah.
And then now, like it feels like all of a sudden there's this like rush of like, whoop, and I'm back. And I think that partially, just partially, it has something to do with like the winter sort of routine, if you will, like getting into
Yeah.
that. I know like there's the holiday season and all of that, but the actual sort of like, oh, we have like we're doing things every day. There's stuff going on. We're moving. There's a routine. There's something, early morning, late at night, the days are full. I think
Yeah.
maybe like the demands or something, it just kind of creates this more energetic state for me. And I'm pleased to be in it. I feel like I'm sort of on an upswing and pretty
Hmm.
pleased with that.
That's really great. Yeah. Yeah, and before we continue talking, you mentioned the holidays, and that is we're going to be talking about the holidays tonight, and talking about family and how to kind of cope with conflict and whatnot. So that'll be in the second half of our show, but there's plenty to talk about there on my end. I don't know about you.
Same stuff to talk about from the past, things to look forward to in the future. We just finished the Thanksgiving break and we'll be
Right.
moving into sort of the Christmas season, if you will. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, fun times. Good. Yeah, there'll
Stuff.
be a lot to talk about. Nah,
Yeah.
but I think generally speaking, I mean, we'll talk about some of that stuff that's been, coming up for sure. But overall, things are pretty groovy and my mind training is going well. Oh, your webcam cut out there for a minute.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. It's okay, you're still with us, so it's all good. There you are. You're back.
Interesting. All right. Just let me know.
Yeah, no, mind training going along well. I find it so fascinating. I know I've brought this up before, but I love when the entire universe conspires to teach lessons. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I had Darshan with Lama a little while ago, where we had a meaningful discussion. And it didn't quite. He was a little enigmatic, a little. I think that might be the right word.
Yeah.
Like he didn't, there were some questions that I had asked him that he didn't directly answer. He answered, but not directly. He more
Mm-hmm.
gave me something to sort of like think about. And I was like, like afterward, I was pondering and pondering. I'm like, what did he mean by that? Like I asked him, but he was evasive. Like he's like kind of like you got to figure that out. You got to figure that out on your own. And it's been really interesting. He told me, he said, he's like, I was talking about sort of these seeing different aspects of reality. I don't know how to describe it, but anyway, he goes, it's like he's like, you're seeing a little too much.
Mm.
And I was like, what? Whoa, what do you mean? He said, yeah. He said it's like you're sitting on the side of the river and you're just hanging out and watching it. And he was like, but the whole task is to get in the river, you
Huh.
know? And I was kind of like, and, and we were talking about bodhicitta, and there was a number of different elements there, and I'm like, what exactly is, God damn it, what does he mean? What does it mean to jump off the diving board, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
does it
yeah.
mean to enter the stream, And and so I've been sitting with that quite a lot, and it's really neat how then various people and factors in my life then come along and are like, hey, here, here's an
Yeah.
opportunity to put into practice what your teacher's talking about.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, man. It's
That's
so
so
like it just
cool.
like it's just it thrills me to no end. It
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard, like it's hard, and the implications can be far reaching and quite grand, right? But at the same time, this process of learning and having these little like, oh, that's little tweaks here and there to try,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun.
Do you think he was saying that like you're observing too much rather than being like actively involving yourself or engaging? Was
Correct.
that the idea? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I'm doing that. I'm still sort of in this. Maybe it's not so much because what I was talking about were these amazing, wonderful sort of non-conceptual states, right?
Mm,
I won't call them non-dual, but maybe glimpses into little pinpricks into something like that, right?
yeah.
Where sort of like this feeling that all three kayas, are present at the same time, and I'm somehow seeing or experiencing all of it, right? Like,
Ah,
that's the wrong terminology, by the way. Yeah,
okay.
I'm certain of that. I'm not trying to. That was my own personal description of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the point was that this seeingness or whatever, that's fine. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not the point.
Mm, yeah.
There's a beingness.
Yeah.
There's something else. There's action involved in this, and choices along the way. Anyway, it all kind of comes together, in a personal fashion, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of having a teacher who knows you and that you can meet with regularly and can give you
Right.
feedback along the way and just point out. Like I would never, I really was like, oh yeah, like I'm getting somewhere. This is
Huh?
cool. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is it. Maybe I'm a Buddha already, like this is
Yeah.
really cool. And he's like, you haven't even like you haven't even dipped your toe in yet. Like you're still just chilling over there. And
Amazing.
what it is,
Amazing.
it's to me what the way that it's showing up sort of in this personal way is that it's true that I have this. It's part of sort of this, like the Buddha family, right? That it is open and expansive and whatever, but it has, both sort of like beneficial and non-beneficial sort of aspects to it, right?
Totally.
And some
Yeah.
of it is this sort of like not engaging really, right? And it's basically sort of disembodied. So
Yeah.
basically some of the application has to do with really coming into being it here in my body here now, right? With the situation at hand, being very alive with that, and then taking that whatever the necessary required action is in that step, right? Without sort
Hmm.
of remaining aloof and uninvolved. Like get involved. It's okay, get involved.
Right, right,
Jump
right.
in, do the thing.
Yeah, because I know when we were talking about the six realms and the all the beings in the different six realms, you were very much attracted to the higher states, the
Yeah,
gods,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
which, fair enough.
Yeah, give me some
But
formless realms, Jack.
right, yeah, those formless realms, that kind of like blissed out,
Yeah, yeah. That's
experiences.
that's it.
Yeah, so that's really it's so funny how we just come back around to
Oh
kind of the
yeah.
same thing. And I think of it a little bit as like, I don't know, it's like this ellipse or something where we
Oh
kind of
yeah.
like, are constantly coming back to the same thing, and it looks a little bit different because here we are from like somewhat of a different perspective or part on the path,
That's right.
but we're still returning to those same lessons over and over again, which is
Like an
beautiful.
onion. It's like an
Yeah.
onion, right? There isn't
Yeah.
even a center. You just keep peeling And they're kind of the same, but a little bit different. Kind of the same. They're kind of connected, but not exactly the same. And you just keep going and going, going, and then eventually, like, there's nothing there.
Yeah. I've been I was going to save this for when I was sharing about myself, but there's
Yeah, share about
a
yourself.
really wonderful quote that I got from Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart. It's an excellent book. I think one of the first books that I read before I even started looking for a temple. And I read this book and just found it so profound and beautiful. Um, but what you're saying about that kind of the onion peeling back until there's nothing there. There's this wonderful quote as the sign that she pinned up on her wall, kind of after her husband left her for another woman, and her life is just falling apart. She says, only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation
Ah,
can that which is indestructible be found in us.
ah,
And I
Jack,
just found
thank
that,
you. Yeah,
when you were saying that about the onion and just kind of peeling back and peeling back and peeling back, and turns out there's nothing there, but everything's there, right?
yeah,
And so this kind of like annihilation that she's talking about, like peeling back those layers,
yeah,
that we have to do all the time to find what's there and what's
yeah.
not there, right? Um,
Exactly. And
so
each time you peel
beautiful,
back a layer, you kind of think you got it.
right? Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah.
But then it comes
It,
back around
and
again,
it
like you
comes
were
back.
saying. You know,
Yeah,
that there is that cyclical aspect of it, where it's easy to think like, oh, I have now successfully met that obstacle and it is no longer here, right? Like it's
Eh,
gone. And then and then you kind of, you believe that and you're like, yeah, it's good. I'm good. I don't need to worry
yeah,
about that anymore.
yeah,
And then something happens and boom, that exact same thing is right there. It may be a little more subtle. It is, like you
yeah,
said, it's a little bit different. It's a different, you're in a different place now. It's all a little different, but it's just now you got another layer, right? You
yeah,
just, yeah. Yeah. I love that
yeah,
quote. Jack, would you read it one more time?
yeah, absolutely. Let
I
me
love
find
Pema
it.
Chodron. I was just talking to a friend about Pema Chodron the other day. He sent me a message from her. And I said,
Yeah,
I really feel like you could take any book by Pema Chodron, open it up to any random page, and read any random sentence, and you would be immensely benefited by that.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the books that I really love too, I think the first book that I borrowed from the Temple Library was Start Where You Are. And
Yeah.
that's she goes through the Lojong slogans. And so Pema Chodron,
Ah,
you know, with Lojong slogans,
ah.
there's just like you can't go wrong. It's incredible. Okay, so let
No,
me
No Time to Lose is another good one by her.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
going over Shanti
absolutely.
Deva's work.
It's nice. Oh, Shanti David, we got to visit him again,
We
please.
will.
Yeah,
We will.
I need
It's
that.
gonna be, hey, right before, so when we get into Shanti Deva the next time, it's gonna be really
Yeah.
interesting to see our own relationship to those teachings
Yeah.
a little bit later down the road now.
Right? Yeah, because I think that was one of our early
Uh-huh.
episodes was our favorite Shanti Deva verses.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, some of them are going to be the same, but yeah, there's a lot that's happened in the last 2 years, isn't
I
there?
know, I know. All right, give it to us.
Okay. Only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible be found in us. Oh,
Expose,
dang it.
that exposing ourselves.
Woo,
Uh, that's it. That's really it.
that's it.
That's it. And we'll get into it, but holidays are a great time for exposing ourselves
Ooh,
to this
sure
annihilation.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we do a little Lojong slogan before we?
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking I could share a little bit about
Oh, please.
yeah,
Yeah.
how
I'm
things
so
have been
sorry.
going for
Please
me, my
do.
training, if that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Um, I I would say the last few weeks I've been a little bit off of center. I am doing my training, but kind of the bare minimum. And except for the last couple days, I haven't been doing my meditation in the morning. And I think that, it's so every time I get into one of those phases, I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, I know that in a couple weeks, I'm going to be feeling kind of
Yeah.
down. I'm going to be feeling a little bit, off kilter and
Yeah.
whatnot. And sure enough, I've been feeling really, not unstable, but just like on shaky ground.
I know what you
And part
mean.
of that, is that my partner's dating. We're poly, but this is new for me because he hasn't dated. I've been the one who's dated,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
now I get to experience what that's like. Um, and so, man, all of this like attachment, aversion, it's strong. Like they are both like
Mm,
tugging at
mm,
me.
mm,
And it's just really amazing to see like what my mind will do. Like my mind is so creative. And it's really trying to like trap me into these narratives that, of envy and like betrayal and these things that aren't actually happening, right?
they're just
Um,
stories you're telling
they're
yourself.
just stories that make me miserable.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah,
but so the last 2 days I have gotten up early enough to do my meditation practice in the morning. That's been really grounding. And also, sometimes it's almost like I need to go back to the basics, right? Which I think we have to be doing all the time. But that kind of like that's what made me go out and get the Pema Children book was that I was like, I want to go back to the basics of my beginner mind where I was like really um enthusiastic, right? And I was reading these kind of like these texts like Pema Chodron or Tara Brach, that are beautiful, right? Um, but they're not necessarily Pema Chodron, yes, but they're not always like kind of like lineage, like full, like kind of
right.
like very traditional
Yeah.
Dharma, I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm saying. Um, and something about that has been really nice just to be like, oh yeah, this is what things were like when I was kind of opening up to all these
Mm,
ideas. Um, and I just remembered it was maybe like 6 months into me starting to go to the temple. Uh, it was my birthday and I had a party. It was my 30th birthday. Um, and I had a party where I decided to invite people from all different like, areas of my life, which before then I would have had like separate gatherings.
right. Yeah.
Like I'd have like my anarchist gathering and I'd have my Buddhist gathering, but I decided like, you know what? I have no control over these people, but I like all of them. And so I just want to invite them and, see what happens. And so I did that. And there was like this kind of sweet mix of like Buddhists and anarchists and like, people I knew from political organizing in school. And it was really lovely.
Yeah.
And it was coming from that mind of like just open spaciousness, like acceptance, love, real kind of like excitement about like, look at all these wonderful
Yeah.
Buddhas to be.
Right. Right.
Um, and so just reminding myself about that mind, um, and to not take things personally, to really focus on what I'm doing, what actions I'm taking, how I'm behaving, how I'm affecting others, rather than worrying about like what other people are doing, what my partner's doing, all of that that just ends up, my control is external to me or my validation is completely external where like if I'm just focusing on what I actually have control over, right?
Mm,
um it's so god it's so much easier.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's so much more effective, right? Because I
Yeah.
can't control anything outside of me. I just can't. And so that's been really nice to remind myself of that, to remind myself that like yes, things fall apart, but that's exactly where we want them to be.
Yeah.
um and I
Because they're
don't know if
always falling apart.
they're always falling
Falling
apart.
apart, coming together,
Yeah,
falling apart, coming
yeah.
together.
And she says, life is such a good teacher and a good friend. Things are
Yeah.
always in transition. And so I kind of came up with like a little mantra for myself that's been really helpful. And that's, all things are of the nature to change and are impermanent. That is their nature, right?
Yeah.
And just reminding myself, that's the nature. That is the nature. Um, and and also that I'm choosing to do this too. So it's not like I'm at like I have no say in the matter, right? Like I'm choosing to take this step. Um, and so yeah, it's been a transformative period. I'm glad that I'm back to getting up in the morning in time to do my meditation. Um, but yeah, man, life just throws you everything you need when you need it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you're ready for it. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. I
Yeah.
would I want to ask you something about what you're talking about here. Um, so early on in your experience, you don't know anything. All you
Hmm.
know is, oh my God, things could be better. And somebody somewhere might have some advice. And then you pick up a book and you read it and you're like, oh, huh. And it's so there it's like sweet, it's like honey or something. And you're like, oh, that makes
Mm.
sense. And that seems hopeful. And they say I can do it. And I do a little bit and I get some results like, wow. Wow, that's really cool. I
Yeah.
didn't even know this was possible to get relief from suffering. I didn't even know that, peace and I didn't even know this was possible. Now wow, I'm experiencing it. It's so exciting and
Yeah.
it's wonderful. And then somehow like because we want to expand our knowledge, we want to deepen our training, our practice, right? We want to do more, be more, get more, right? And we
Hmm.
begin to see as we peel back the onions of both um Dharma, right, itself, as it becomes more revealed to us, as our understanding of it changes and grows and evolves, it seems more daunting. It seems like,
Mm.
whoa, oh, this goes on forever and it's so big and it's like I'm nowhere close to the goal. When you
Yeah.
were starting, the goal, you didn't even know. I mean, I don't know about you. In my case, I didn't
Right.
even have a goal. I just was like, shit sucks. There's, I
Yeah.
want things to be better. Lo and behold, a
Yeah.
little meditation practice on a regular basis makes things better. And then
Yeah.
I just kept going. And that was enough back then, right?
Totally.
And then now
100%.
somehow I'm like, oh, that's not good enough.
Totally.
That relief from suffering. Oh yeah, sure, but now I need to do this. I need to attain. I need to, I need to change. And so I wonder if maybe part of this, what you're talking about, and I hope that you'll speak to this, has something to do with that. There was an openness, a free, an unknowingness, a childlike mind, a beginner's mind that was natural, right?
Yeah.
And it was easy. Whereas now that you have a little bit, things have changed and you have a little better understanding, you're like, oh shit, this stuff's
Yeah.
daunting.
Yeah. 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 Well, yeah, I wonder, we must be kind of like we're on similar kind of parts of the path, I think, like maybe a lot of people experience this. I don't know, I'd be curious to hear it from our friends. But I wonder, like as I'm reading this book again, and she talks a lot about Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's work and life. I imagine that both of them would say like there's no goal.
No.
And actually that beginner's mind of like, I have no goal. I just want to see what can happen. I want
Yeah.
to feel better.
Yeah.
And um yeah, see how the effect that it has on people. That's
Yeah.
cool, right?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, maybe it is that there's some kind of like, and it could be culturally, I think it is just also human nature, this like desire to like kind of accumulate and see what we can get. um and so maybe it's part of like our kind of developmental process is like coming to a place of maturity, which is the beginner's mind. Like how fascinating that that's the case.
Right.
So yeah, I wonder if others would have different opinions of that, but I think that's kind of where it's at for me is that like those kind of old behaviors are creeping in, right? That like those needs for external validation, the right,
Yeah.
the need to feel like I'm gaining something. Those are all, spiritual materialism. Um,
Yeah,
right?
for
Wouldn't you say
sure, for
so?
sure.
Um, yeah, maybe it is just like, and I imagine so as we peel back the layers of the onion, and we're on kind of like a new part of the ellipsis or like a new part in the labyrinth, right? We're farther along on that path, but we're kind of, we're curving towards what looks like, we're back out, right? Where we were before we were even in the labyrinth, right? But
Right.
we're actually, we're farther along the path and we're going to keep coming around and around.
Right. You might be at the same point on the X and Y axis, but not the Z axis.
I know nothing about the Z axis. I'm curious, but I'm sorry.
I just mean, or
Is Z
whatever.
like
You might be at the same
3D?
point on the X axis, but at different points on the Y axis.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. Is the Z axis like 3D? Is it out?
That's what I imagine. I'm no
Oh, cool.
mathematician. I made that.
Okay.
I think I made that up.
Well, this has been really nice to talk about. I think
I have
I'm
another
just so
question though.
glad
We're not done yet.
we're not done yet.
No, you brought this up. So I there's another thing that so there's this other aspect to what you're talking about, like in your relationship dynamics, where you have to do something. You recognize that your mind is disturbed. You can see kind of like, oh, I can kind of like I get kind of what this stuff is, but it's still here. Like I can see it, but
Hmm.
it's still here. I'm gonna read, I'm gonna practice, I'm gonna apply, I'm gonna train. And then you're like, oh, okay. And you get a little bit of relief, right? You're
Yeah.
like, ah. But that circle that you're talking about in these dynamics comes back 10 seconds later. It's not
Yeah.
10 days later or 10 years later. Like you literally, like I don't know about you, but I can just imagine that you're like, oh, okay. You're like, okay, I got this. I'm good. I'm good.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then I don't know, some thought, something triggers, and you're right back there.
Yep. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, it's like one step forward, hopefully not two steps back.
Sometimes two or three back, but then maybe four
Right.
forward.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's, it's going to be a slow road.
Yeah.
But I do see like how, um, yeah, how like I can see where it can end up, or at least where it's heading, right? And the maturity that is opening up within me, right? Like, damn
Yeah, the
it.
time
Like
is right. I'm glad this didn't happen to you 2 years ago.
oh my God. Well, that's an interesting thing, and not to go too far off on a tangent, but when we first started dating, I felt like I was a lot less jealous because I was ready for him to be dating because
Right.
we entered the
Yeah.
relationship open,
Right.
right? But then as things became more solidified, that it was like, oh, I'm just used to not having to deal with that,
Right. You got conditioned.
I got conditioned and now I'm on this damn
Right.
journey.
Oh,
I
oh,
don't want to be on a
how
journey.
fun. How fun. I'm glad. I can't help but believe that this is fertile ground for training.
Absolutely.
This is where
Absolutely.
bodhisattvas are born.
It's where it's at. Yeah. So there's some coal right now that's
Oh
really like,
yeah.
oh, it's
Yeah.
so dirty and nasty in there, but
Oh,
it's, I know there's a diamond happening in there somewhere.
yeah. I look forward to you telling us a little bit about how Tonglen will help with that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I
Yeah.
need to start practicing. Good reminder.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, speaking of important training,
All right. Yeah.
let's do some Mojang.
Let's do some Lojong. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. I am on the random Lojong slogan page on Lions Roar Dharma Center. Push the big orange button.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Ah,
oh
all
yeah.
right. Number 49. Always meditate on difficult points. Okay. So Charlotte Kiebgon says, it's important to have joy and enthusiasm for our practice, but we should still find it challenging enough to test our capabilities for growth. Difficulties must be welcomed because it's only by overcoming challenges that we develop. We should gradually introduce into our meditation those areas that we normally find upsetting or difficult, instead of choosing meditations that always ease our minds or make us feel good without requiring much effort on our part. If our practice becomes tedious, unproductive, or painful, we need to correct that instead of blaming the practice or succumbing to a defeatist attitude. The distinctive feature of Lojong is the importance it places on topics that challenge our understanding, test our endurance, and stretch our mental capabilities.
And give us
Fine.
and opportunities that give us um let's see opportunities to expose ourselves to annihilation repeatedly.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever done the kind of like graveyard meditations, those where you're supposed to like go out
Yeah,
and
yeah,
be
yeah,
somewhere where it feels really like, I don't know, kind of unsettling or whatnot.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
I haven't done that, but I've definitely been meditating with some of my demons, that's for sure, over the last month or so.
Yeah.
Um, and man, they're interesting little creatures, those parts of my mind.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think, this is so true, like how important it is to not just meditate on those things that are like, lovely and peaceful and
Yeah,
calming, which that's important as well.
right,
But
right.
um, our world is not like that.
Not at all.
Yeah,
I can I give a personal anecdote on this? This
please
is
do.
this is
Yeah.
totally relevant. So, and it's tied into the topic for the show. So, I had this experience yesterday where, um, I have a sometimes a pretty dark and slightly twisted, cynical sense of humor, that I'm attached to, by the way, and that I identify
Sure.
with. That's part of my ego, right? Um,
Totally.
but like I'm really attached to it, actually. And I oftentimes use humor as ways to sort of deal with difficult subject matters.
Hmm.
And I personally find it kind of a good, it seems good to me as a good way to like deal with difficult topics.
Yeah.
Anyway, yesterday I was having a conversation with my partner's daughter, 14 years old. And it started sort of innocent enough around artificial intelligence technology, right? I'm listening, and she was expressing concern about people losing their jobs and things like that. I then took that and I combined it with some fears around the recent elections here in the United States, combined them into this really kind of twisted joke that I think was actually pretty funny, right? But she looked at me and she was like, I don't know if you're being serious or if you're joking. I think you're joking, but that is not funny. Like, people are
Wow.
scared, people are hurting,
Yeah.
and here you are like laughing about it and joking about it. And
Mm.
my initial in that moment, I thought, well, I can see we're both heightened right now, like because I'm attached to I think, people shouldn't be so sensitive about humor,
Mm.
blah, blah, blah,
Mm.
whatever. Right?
Hmm.
And so, but I recognized I was like, gosh, yeah, this is gonna like I don't really want to get in. I'm not trying to get into a fight with a kid, about this and
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like, hey, yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. I can see what you're saying. But I was really not being sincere, right? I
Mm.
was just sort of being like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm not gonna fight this. And then I left, and little bit later, I was like thinking about it. And I was like, damn it, that kid's right.
Mm.
Like she's dead right. So I told her, I was like, hey, thank you very much because you have given me a point to meditate on tomorrow morning.
Mm.
And so this morning's meditation was all about the notion of right speech and the way that
Wow.
my words impact other people and influence other people. And it was a really beautiful meditation that revealed actually quite a lot. right? About
Mm.
myself and about my intentions, about how, I can have this aggression and how on the one hand, I sing the praises of harmony and peace, love and compassion and all of this. And on the other side, I'm callous and disregard people's feelings
Totally.
and laugh at things that are, terrible situations, right? I could see it, and it was like it turned out as this beautiful meditation on a
Mm.
rather difficult point for me personally, right? And
Yeah.
the reason I'm bringing this up partially is because of this Lojong slogan, um, but also because all of these interactions, like the with you and your relationship, me and my these different relationships, whether it's with kids or with a partner, or with a
Yeah.
boss, somebody at some point something's gonna rub you the wrong way, right? And that thing that's being rubbed the wrong way is the onion. That's the that's the shell. That's the thing that needs to get
Yeah.
annihilated, right? Like it's not about ego destruction. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But this is the practice, right? To see, to witness. And when other people make us feel uncomfortable, that's a wonderful time to bring that into meditation. Be like, hey, that's the universe trying to teach me something.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Buddha just showed up
Wow.
with a valuable lesson.
What a moment.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, it's surprising to find how attached we are to those things that otherwise we probably don't think about that much as like part of who we are, like
Right.
we think of other things like I don't know, like identity things or here's my good qualities, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of
But
or
that
we
is
see
it. That is
the
an
humor
identity.
in a good light, right?
But yeah, but Jack, that
Yeah.
is an identity thing,
Yeah,
right? I
absolutely.
didn't
Yeah.
realize that I was
Yeah.
identified with it until
Right.
it was challenged and I saw that I wanted to
Right.
protect it.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Oh
And
my
then I
gosh,
realized,
that's
oh,
amazing.
I'm identified with this. This is part of this solid self that you think you are.
Right.
You think you're a funny guy, and that's how you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It turns out like no, that's just a story I've told myself and
Right.
believed myself. And usually, and many cases, not usually, but many cases, the humor is not shared by the people I'm
Yeah.
with, right? It's just for
Right.
my own benefit somehow to prove how smart I am or how I don't care or whatever.
Right, right. And yeah, it is so that one in particular I really resonate with because I also have a tendency where I can be pretty acerbic, like a little bit
Yeah,
abrasive in my humor.
right.
And I just assume that it's like, people get it, it's funny.
Yeah,
But I know that there's times where people have taken me seriously.
that's right.
And it's like, oh no, 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 no. Like I don't
Ah,
want you to see me that way. I'm funny, right? I'm like,
right.
we're cool, right?
Yeah, I'm not an
Um,
asshole. No, no.
it
No,
turns
I'm
out
just
like,
funny.
hell yeah, we are assholes sometimes. Yeah, that's such a good one. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things that we get to let go of on the way, a little bit at least. Look at this beautiful golden Buddha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.
Does it say who that is?
Indeed. Indeed.
Vairocana.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know much about Vairocana, but
Isn't that the isn't Vairochana, isn't that word for the primordial Buddha? I thought. No? Am I
oh,
wrong?
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Primordial
Like a
Buddha.
isn't it like a Samantabhadra kind of? Am I wrong
I
about
don't
I
know.
think I'm wrong. Don't let's
Okay.
not I'm not gonna say anymore because I don't know anything.
I'm looking forward to speaking of, holidays and Samantabhadra. I'm looking forward to the annual reading of the Samantabhadra text,
Oh, the King of Prayers.
the King of Prayers. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've had some interesting interactions with the King of Prayers.
Have you?
Yeah, it was yeah, good stuff. I totally, if anybody, if you have an opportunity to participate in the recitation of the King of Prayers, well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
When's it coming up? Do you know?
Isn't it New Year's Day?
Is it? Okay.
I would think so, right?
Yeah.
That's
I
when we've
think
been
that's
doing
you.
it.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
I will hopefully, and that'll be the same this year. I really do
yeah.
enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, me too. Cool. Well, we just
Wow.
came off of a weekend of holidays. And I don't know about you, but I was with family. And as tends to happen in in many in many families, there's, a mix of joy, mix of conflict, boredom, ennui. And that was certainly my experience. Were you also with family this Thanksgiving?
I was. Different kind of experience, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, totally opportunities for what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
great.
tell me a little bit about what's the maybe, what kind of conflict arises?
Well, the kind of overall general conflict for me with my family is that I tend to just be pretty different from
Mhm.
my family, in some ways that can be difficult when I'm down there. There's a lot of TV watching, which is just not quite my thing.
Mhm.
I kind of end up feeling like antsy, a little bit itchy, like when the
Yeah.
TV's on all the time. I just want like some quiet and space.
Yeah.
So that was happening in the background kind of all the time. Um, and then, politics inevitably
Oh, yeah.
comes up, even though we've kind of made agreements to not talk politics. But it came up this time, and fortunately, it was with my mom, and my mom's a little bit better at conflict than my dad is.
Yeah.
Um, and it I should know by now that it's like that's just them, right? Like that's my family. But every time we get into these discussions, I just feel like I feel pained. Um, and and so I'm really, really trying to make an effort to not take those things personally and to be curious, right? Because I think, as we talk about family conflict, conflict over the holidays, conflict around politics. So much of it is that, I'm trying to defend a position rather than, have a conversation with people that I love, right? And people who aren't talking heads, they're humans and they have their reasons for believing that. But yeah, there's times where I just feel very frustrated by it. And my kind of alarm bells go off and my fuse gets short, and I say things that I don't really want to say. I would say so this time around it actually went a lot better. So I think that is my training showing up. Where I could actually, feel those feelings as they started to arise. I had some awareness that like, there's some heat there,
Mhm.
I can feel some adrenaline. My
Yeah.
heart's beating a little bit faster. And so that means that there's something that I feel pretty strongly about here. And so what I found myself doing was just being quieter. Um, and part of that is that my sister is a little bit more talkative than I am. And so she would kind of be talking with my mom a lot. And but I just really tried to listen and to listen to what my mom was saying and the reasons for why she believes what she does. Um, because I did sometimes I think that my mom's a little naive, and so I just, believe that she's kind of listening to what her husband says or listening to what the news says and not really making opinions on her own, which I think is unfair. And so I'm glad that I allowed myself to see that she has her own autonomous being and she can make decisions and, have ideas of her own. And yeah, and I felt genuinely like I wasn't coming from a position. It was like, you're going to say what you're going to say. I'm going to tell you how I feel about that. And here's why. Um, and I still love you.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about what happened with my family and how I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at dealing with those things. Because it used to be that I would just shut down. I would either completely shut down and not have anything to say and just be like smoldering in a
Yeah, it's an
corner.
angry shutdown.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. The
Or I'd
nuclear
be
reactor is still
right,
sitting
yeah,
there ready to melt down.
totally, yeah. Or the like the kind of opposite version of that anger, which was explosive and really defensive and shutting other people down, right? And making other people feel stupid, right? Which I really don't. I got no interest in that anymore. Um,
Thank God.
so I know, Jesus. So yeah, that's I know a lot of people, and myself included, are feeling so many different kinds of ways about,
Oh yeah.
politics and all the things, and that these are conversations many of us are having with family members. And so I feel that very strongly. But I do think that there's a better way to do it. Be
Yeah.
curious. Um,
I think what you're getting
yeah.
at here is
Mm,
something that's really quite I think is a critical part of a middle way here, right? Like you
yeah.
don't want to shut down, you don't want to explode. You want to deal with the situation skillfully while being authentic and true to yourself.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't you can't suffer fools, so to speak. You don't want to sit there and agree with people, right?
Right.
And
Right.
you also don't want to not participate. You're there to engage. You're there to be
Mm-hmm.
you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is what points to one of the most important aspects. This was something that I've been sitting with since Sunday.
Mm,
So our friend Matthew gave a talk
right.
on diligence, the paramita of effort, and he said something. He was quoting a Zen teacher. I don't know the Zen teacher's name. Who
Rev Anderson?
Yeah,
Is
thank
that
you.
him? Yeah.
And I believe he was quoting him when he said something like, it was very simple. It was like, hey, how about starting with, do I really want this? Right?
Hmm.
And he was talking about, all of these practices, right? What they're leading towards. Do I want peace?
Hmm.
Do I want harmony? It's a good
A
place to
good
start.
question.
Can we just start with that? Like, so when we're setting the intention, it'd be easy to be like, I'm going to a family get together. I set the intention for peace, love, and happiness, and here we go. Right?
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. It's deeper than that. That's where some meditation would be really helpful like where you intentionally bring in this difficult sort of point that it is difficult, I promise you, to see whether or not you really actually want this.
That's
Because
right.
if you actually want this, then that can give way, that deep desire, like where you're like, oh, I know that when I go to this, I'm aware of family dynamics that always, like they come up, they're regular. I already kind of know where people are coming from, right? But then recognizing that what we really want to do in that experience is to train our mind. We want to work for the benefit of all beings, not other beings, all beings,
Mm-hmm.
your being,
Mm-hmm.
their being, everybody's being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really being clear about that that's what you actually want. Because if you don't want it, if there's any
Yeah,
kind of sort of, there might be cognitive dissonance sort of. On the one hand, this is my
totally.
problem, right? A lot of lip service, but when it actually comes down to it, turns out like I don't always like peace.
Yeah,
You know what I
same.
mean? Like
Same.
sometimes I want some drama and I want to like you said, make other people feel stupid and I want to feel
Yeah.
right. And I want to, all that
Yeah.
nonsense. And that is anti-peace. That is
Yep.
anti-connection. That is more self, me, right? The very
Yep.
problem. And so I want to be clear about what I actually am doing and whether I really want that. And once that happens, the rest can unfold a bit more naturally. If I know this going in, I'm reminded of it ahead of time, then when I witness the rising of these feelings, which because they are
Hmm.
going to show up,
Yeah.
right? The anger, the all of it.
Yeah.
And then we can witness that, and we can like you do what you did, very skillful practice to not necessarily speak reactively, but still remain engaged, attentive, interested, right?
Right.
Recognizing very importantly, and this is fundamental to our practice, recognizing the goodness and the kindness of these other people.
Right. And like you said, I think it was maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, where you were talking about how e- each of these people who has, their ideas about how to be happy, right? That is what politics, right? Why we're engaging with politics in the first place is that we're
That's
trying
right.
to find ways to be happy.
Yeah.
And that includes Trumpers,
Yeah.
right? And their direction of going towards happiness is different than ours, but they still want that. And so I found that really profound. And in the moment, I was not like, I was like, ugh, I just don't want to agree with that
Right.
because I have, like you said, that part of me that doesn't want to make peace with those people. And so um, I think when I can enter those situations, reminding myself, we all want happiness. Okay, so
That's right.
we all want happiness. Um, all of these people have Buddha nature, and so
Correct.
I can respect that. If there's anything that I can respect here, right, it's that there's Buddha nature in each one of these individuals, even if I don't like their opinions, or I don't even respect their opinions, right? I
Right.
can respect the fact that they have Buddha nature, and then that means I have to treat them with respect.
Correct.
Um, yeah.
Correct. You reminded me actually, I saw this quote from the Dalai Lama just a day or two ago somewhere it
Mm-hmm.
popped up, and it said something to the effect. I don't. I'm looking at various quotes that are on a similar note, but he was like, let me be very clear that I believe that the purpose in our life is to be happy. I want to be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the quotes that pops up, our purpose in life is to be happy. From the very core of our being, we simply desire contentment. And we recognize that this is true for everybody we talk to, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting because you'll notice, I know you've had this experience, I've had it, where we talk to somebody who's, oh my God, their opinions and ours clash every which way. But if we start talking about what makes us happy, what we long for, what we wish to see different, we'll notice tremendous
Absolutely.
common ground there about the deep down what the ultimate goal is for all of us. We can all actually agree on that. It's just that there's skillful ways of actually getting that, leading to a happy
Mm-hmm.
self, happy family, happy community, happy world. There's a way to do that. And there's all kinds of ways that we engage in that don't do that, don't lead to those outcomes, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's where the trouble is brewing. But I feel quite strongly that that recognition of the goodness of others and that they want the same thing as you, and
Yeah.
and that you're not right about the way to their happiness or even your own
Right.
necessarily. That when we have these strong clashes of beliefs, our beliefs are also our ego, right? Like
Yeah.
our conceptual mind, what we've attached to as right and wrong and the best way to something, something, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. For
We're
sure.
telling our story, they're telling their story, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm reminded of I don't remember who said it, but just imagining if I had the same upbringing, if I had the same parents, if I had the same kind of environment as the people that I'm debating, there's no wonder, like absolutely I would have their
Of
same
course.
ideas, right? And
Right.
so we're shaped by everything around us, all the causes and
Yeah.
conditions. And so how could I be mad? Right?
Right. What did you
What
expect?
did we expect?
Right?
Yeah.
Let's be a little bit, you know, let's, on the one hand, let's be realistic. right? About the nature of conceptual mind, right? And
Mm.
samsaric suffering. Like, okay, we'll be realistic about that. But also, can we just release the expectations? Can we drop them?
Yeah.
And see, because that's that beginner's mind that we were referring to earlier, right? When we enter in without knowing, one of the problems that happens in family dynamics is that children grow, they get older, they come back together, they're with their siblings, their parents, their so-and-sos, and everybody's roles are reassumed. All their like those dynamics,
Uh,
everybody assumes like I am the this, I'm the black sheep, and that's the this, and
yep.
this, and everybody kind of starts to like play their part within this old ass
Right.
story, right? That
Right.
maybe nobody's even like wanting or liking anymore, right? But we somehow
Yeah.
still participate in it, because of our conditioned behavior. If we come in with an open mind, I don't know, is my mom gonna, be like this? Is my dad gonna be? I don't know. I'm actually not even gonna assume anything. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
see what's actually there.
Right. Right. Don't make assumptions. Don't
Oh,
take things personally, even though they're your family, you know. Um, everything it's all of this is just a reflection of our own minds. You
that's
know,
right.
how can I take that personally?
I know how can and the person is a mirage anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if the person isn't truly in existence, then what's the problem? Why
Yeah.
is it being the only thing that can take something personally is a person?
Yeah. That's
So
right.
it's that fixed sense of self. But here's the thing is that at least what's becoming very clear to me is that that fixed sense of self isn't just about my body. It's not just about, certain core gross attributes. It's deep,
Yeah.
It has layers and layers and layers and
Yeah.
layers.
Yeah. And that's I think it's so important to, the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, especially the reflection on death and impermanence, where we can imagine, like, let's say, we come down with terminal cancer, like
Yeah.
that we're given, 6 weeks to live. What that does to change our perspective on these people
Yeah.
who are also, in their own processes of death and annihilation, right? So why am I fixating so much on these boxes that I've placed them in, and on these
Yeah.
categories that I'm positioning myself in against them? And like you said, those roles that we kind of
Ah,
embody. It's so much more beautiful and precious when we can recognize none of that is actually happening.
right.
We are just we're totally in flux. And how beautiful that actually is.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And I what you pointed to there is actually, I think, a perfectly wonderful exercise while in the midst of the family dynamics, is
Mm,
if you could take a minute and instead of just thinking like, I'm going to be dead soon, I don't know about when I'm going to be gone, and my life is short and I should practice now because the time is of the essence. What if, again, to borrow from a little bit of Matthew's talk, about the nature of grief and how this has to do with the fact that when we grieve the loss of someone, oftentimes what we're grieving is the fact that we didn't love them the way, or that we wish we would have. We have
yeah.
regrets because we're not going to be able to say the things, do the things. And so maybe a good exercise while we're there is to imagine that they're going to die soon.
Yeah.
And like, what if this is your last family get together?
Right. Oh, so important. Yeah. It'd be a lot different, wouldn't
It'd
it?
be a lot different.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Daniel, this has been
So good.
so good. I miss you. I'm really
Mm.
glad we're back on target.
Me too. Me
Gonna hang
too.
out next week too.
Yes,
Um, and yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you are able, please make a donation on lionsroar.dharmacenter.org. We'd super appreciate it.
we really would.